I'd like to call to order the agenda for Belton City Council, March 9th, 2021. Right now at this time, we're going to call a work session to order. First of all, personal appearances. We've got Dr. Underwood, Superintendent, Belton School District.
Thank you, Mayor Davis and City Council. Appreciate you guys allowing me a few minutes. I just want to share a little information. We do have a ballot issue on for April 6th. And so I placed some information at your desk, and if anybody here in the crowd wants one, I'd be happy to share these out. We're actually going to mail this out as information the end of March, so everybody in the school district will receive one. In regards to this information, it is a no tax increase. The language is long, somewhat tricky, but the last sentence says it all. Our levy will remain unchanged. But we have to go to our patrons and ask, we want to move 50 cents out of our debt service into our operating fund, and then we're going to commit that money to our teachers and staff for salaries. As you guys know, in 2017, we passed the bond to finish the high school. We did that, and we haven't had a full year in it yet, thanks to the pandemic, but we're working on that. And then also, we are doing improvements right now on secure entrances in all our buildings. We just started Hillcrest on 58 just this last week, and we're going to do all those. We're also doing roofing projects, parking lots, but we still have paid down our debt aggressively over the last 5 to 10 years, which will allow us to transfer this 50 cents out of our debt service into operating. We'll still be able to pay all of our debts and our bills, but then we can commit more of this to salaries. My example I would give is a beginning teacher in Belton right now starts on the first year at $38,200. We want to move that to over $40,000, which would put us in top 5 in the metro as far as the beginning teacher salary. Our staff has worked amazingly hard. We've been in 5 days a week since the beginning of school with no breaks. Our staff has followed our protocols, and they've committed to our kids. We have about 1,400 kids that are virtual right now, as well as about 3,600 that are in person. And in my opinion, our staff has knocked it out of the park. Since it's springtime, got to use a little baseball analogy. So that all being said, you guys could get out and vote. We're asking for support, obviously, in regards to this nature. But the key is that everybody, we're in the education business. We want to make sure everybody knows on what they're voting on. Is a transfer from one fund to another, and it does not increase taxes. And I'll take a question if anybody has any.
No questions, but a comment. It's going to be great that teachers and staff get some raises. It's been tough. So I think this is a great thing. So for what it is, good luck, and we appreciate you coming this evening.
Right.
Anybody else? Seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Yes,
very
thank
much.
you. You guys have a great night.
Okay, B, recognition of service for members of the Belton Emergency Management Agency, Mike Connor. Oh, boy, you're ready.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
first off, I'd like to note that I'm wearing my purple tonight in support of Dr. Underwood and the school district.
That's good stuff.
But I would like to call forward Lieutenant John Baker, who's behind me. Yes, John is our Deputy Emergency Management Director, and he'll start off, and then we'll make our presentation.
Had to resort to these already. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting us come out today. Since my installment, I found in very short order that I was going to lose, through retirement, a very seasoned individual. Can you all hear me okay? In the early summer of 1966, upon graduating from high school, Mike Connor joined the Civil Defense for the city of Belton. At that time, it was just he and Eldon Miller who provided the city with much needed service. During the height of the Vietnam War, Mike Connor enlisted in the United States Army and would be awarded the Bronze Star for his actions. He returned to Belton and continued to serve his community. Over the years, he responded to many community needs and helped with the transition from civil defense to emergency management. But during that time, his dedication was that of a volunteer, and he dedicated many hours to emergency training and professional development. Some of the training included radiological monitoring, damage assessment, earthquake preparedness, planning, emergency response to terrorism, and multi-agency resource management. And in December, he chose to retire, leaving us with service of 54 years and 6 months.
Mike, if you'd come forward. You know, an organization is only as good as its members, and you've been a dedicated and loyal member for a long, long time. Most of those 54 years, you and I have known each other.
No, you were just little.
Thank you. But, you know, you've meant a lot, and as you leave, we're going to be losing a lot of institutional knowledge and history that cannot be replaced. You've been an integral part of Belton Emergency Management from the early days when it was Belton Civil Defense, and so because of that, we'd like to recognize you for all those years of service and congratulate you on your retirement. And we have for you a retired captain's badge as you are retiring as captain from Belton Emergency Management.
All these years, I've had, I don't know, about 9 directors I've worked under. The best one I had was Eldon. He was there for about 36 years. And it got to the point where just 2 of us, him and me. We thought about it. We said, no, we're going to keep plugging away. We just had individuals drop out for whatever reason. But over the years, that there's now 20, I think about 24 in the unit. They're dedicated. They're hard workers. They will do anything for the city. All the flood watches we've been on, looking for lost kids in the fields, in the mud with bunker gear on. They're a lot of fun. But the unit has been very, very needed. Like I said, at one time it was Eldon and I, and we knew that we had to keep it going. He got some in, I got some in. At the drop of a hat, you know, we get paged out, and we're on the road. We've seen a lot of different types of equipment we've worked with. Some we haven't worked, we've had to improvise, but we made it. I'm proud to have served with the unit. There was a lot of good time, not so good time. So overall, it's been a terrific experience. Thank you.
John, you'll have to turn it this way to get it for John.
Really.
I'll take one this way,
And we're really smiling.
and then I'll.
We're on.
Thank you.
Let's take your time back.
Thank you. All right. Items for review and discussion. What do we have this afternoon, this evening?
Do you want me to take it? Mr. Mayor, under budget and water rates discussion, some of the city council members provided some direction and some input. Those items are outlined on page 7, and that was for informational purposes for all of you. Those are also related to the items that once we go further into the agenda, you will see that those items are outlined individually under motions. And we'd entertain any questions that you might have about those items at this time.
Councilman Clark.
Alexa, one time we were talking about, and I think even was mentioned here in the last couple of weeks, that we talked about getting a grant for the asbestos pipes on what I call the old Air Force Base.
Yeah, Cimarron Trails, yeah.
Are we anywhere close to that, or do you know anything about
No,
that?
we've been speaking with the people at the EPA and looking, area representative for our region was the former Public Works Director in Grandview, and so he's still is affiliated with the EPA, and he's working with us on that. The application deadline is in the fall, it's in October. So that would be the earliest that we would apply, but he has advised us that there are some additional steps that we need to go through first for assessment and things that we should do that so that we will have a better chance of actually getting that grant. So we are moving forward with it, but we don't have anything definitive at this time.
How many miles are out there, by the way?
A little over 3.
Okay. One of the things I noticed in our map today, and it could just be shaded wrong, is I noticed like that new area behind the hospital looks like it had like the ductile iron and not PVC. And I don't, like I said, it could be just something that's shaded wrong. Is that Metal View?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the map in front of me.
So it's like right behind Research Medical Center, or I'm sorry, Belton
Belton.
Regional. And it's brand new. It's only been developed since '07, and it's showing that we have like not PVC piping. I was trying to figure out why we would allow someone to put ductile iron in '07. I know you guys weren't here either, so I'm just trying to see if this is wrong or if this is actually.
I think Greg might have some information for you.
Okay.
Basically, if there's a pipe that was greater than 10 inches in diameter at that time, they used ductile iron.
Okay.
So that's why there's ductile iron in newer areas because of the larger sizes of pipe.
And doesn't that have to do with the amount of pressure that goes through the pipe that it can withstand, where the
Correct.
ductile iron will withstand it more than the PVC?
Ductile iron, yeah.
Well, it looks like it's going through neighborhoods, though. I mean, it's not like it's an arterial line. It's city streets on my map here.
I'm happy to look at that.
Yeah, I mean,
better.
I'm just trying to figure out, when I look at the map, I noticed that area was like a city street, and what started me looking at was over by the police station, because we had that break there about a month or so ago, and I was just trying to figure out what type of pipes were going into the police station, what got me looking, and it caught my eye down there, so I just wanted to see if that was actually coded right.
We can verify it for you, but if it, like, as Greg has alluded to, if it's a large main line that's going through, then yeah, it probably would be ductile, but we'll confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Mayor, I guess me and Councilwoman Davidson have met with Sheila on last week. I thought we had a pretty productive meeting, and some of the things that we discussed, you'll see on page 7 that Ms. Barton brought up, talks about trying to, and I think there's a couple motions on the floor today to keep some of the costs down. And we come up with about $175,000 currently we figure out in the general fund that is an overture that we could probably use. Then we had I thought we was using it, wasn't it $230,000 that we were paying back last week to the infrastructure improvements?
Yes, that's under a different motion.
That's a different
That's
motion,
a different
okay.
item for a second reading tonight.
Okay. And then, so you can read on that, some of that stuff is trying to reduce the cost for water instead of having a rate increase this year. Going forward, me personally, I would like to take in and start looking at the overhead allocation for the water department only next year, and try to take 50% of that and apply it towards infrastructure improvements. And then hopefully the following year after that is take the other 50% and again put it all towards infrastructure improvements. So in my simpleton thinking here now, we got $1.2 million in 3 years without doing a water increase. My goal and my hope is that sales tax numbers continue to climb. Businesses that are coming in are going to continue to give us the revenue needed to offset this expense. And trying to give you a year's period of time before next year's budget to come up with hopefully solutions to take that overhead allocation from the water department and put it towards the infrastructure improvements that we need to do for our community. I know that this year, not just doing the $400,000, we're not gonna keep moving forward and build that fund up to where we want it to be. But I think if we take the money from the water overhead allocation next year, the $845,000, half of that next year, half of that in 23, 24, whatever budget cycle it is, that gets us hopefully where we only have to raise water in 25, maybe 4 or 5% to get us where we need to be. Mayor, that's my comments. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Davidson.
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback off of what Councilman Clark said, so we had a great meeting a couple of weeks ago with Sheila, and really, I think the goal of the meeting was to figure out how we could not do a rate increase this year. I think when well, I won't put words in Councilman Clark's mouth, but I think when we voted to approve the 10%, the initial 10% last year, I know that we both made a comment that we would like to see future proceeds from the TIFs expiring, put toward some of this infrastructure in the future. And so I think what we're proposing for this year really is a one-time Band-Aid kind of a deal. So it's not meant to be long-term, but it does keep us from having to do an increase this year. And so just to be a little bit more specific, we were talking about no grade increase, and correct me if I'm wrong, no grade increases this year. That was on the list. And then the one-time water transfer overage, that was the last 3 years combined. And then taking the percentage above 15% for the general fund, and I think we're at 16 point, Sheila, do you know, we're at 16.2? So taking that 1.17 and then putting us back at 15% and applying that overage toward this would give us about what we needed to raise in that 8% for this year if we had increased the water rate. So that's what we're proposing to everybody today. And so if anybody has any questions or comments, those are the motions that you'll see later on. So we're happy to roll with it if anybody has any comments.
Councilwoman Peak.
I don't know if I didn't hear completely everything you said, but what was the first thing? Are you proposing no raises for the staff?
No, the cost of living increases would stay, but the grade increases would not. And it was what, $20,000 roughly?
For the one position or for all positions?
I thought it was all positions.
No. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that total amount.
The one position with salary and benefits totaled $20,000.
Okay, thank you.
So can we clarify, are we just talking about that one position?
I thought there was wasn't there some other ones that we looked at that day? I mean, unfortunately, that was a week ago or more.
We talked about the public safety ones, but those are all.
No, it was just the step grades. I thought for some reason.
All of the other grades, the only other grades that had actual dollars attached to them were the public,
I mean, it wasn't a lot of money, but I thought it was like 60,000, but if it's 20, I know that I know the one position was like 20,000, but I thought there was some other ones in there that got us up to like 60,000, but I could be wrong.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
And it might have been the person that just spoke that it was his position that we couldn't take any money from. Is that?
Yes, you had mentioned that, yes.
Okay. But no, we didn't talk about taking any salary increases away from the employees at all, other than step increases. So, we still wanted to give out the 2.5% bump that everybody gets on their anniversary date. We didn't talk about changing the new hires, so we're still giving the 3 dispatchers and whatever else was in the budget. We didn't take anything away. We're just looking at other revenue sources that try to get us to that $400,000 mark that we're looking for.
Okay, Councilman Savage, you were next.
Yes, so we still, I think, are missing part of the part of the equation here. We raised the 400,000, but we need to raise that 400,000 year after year after year if in fact we're going to go ahead and drive toward replacing these water lines at what we believed, with information we had, at a reduced rate over a bond issue. That was our goal. We raised it one time. This needs to continue on. All we're doing is pushing it off ever how many number of years that you want to call it. Because you get your 8% this year, which nobody likes an increase. I don't like an increase, but I also have good water lines, but I know those who don't. And our goal several years ago was to focus on replacement of all the water mains that need to be replaced. We also know that there's a possible grant. We've always known that. We're going to continue to push for that, not only in asbestos, that's probably our best bet, but in any other options we have too. So what we're doing here, if we need to get off track, get off of that focus, then let's go back and visit the reason we started in the first place, so we'd have a goal for raising X number of funds to replace these lines in X number of years, just to get ahead of it. Our problem is we've been behind it, and we have looked at what the expenses are. That was part of the investigation for deciding how to approach this. We've looked at that. What does it cost us to maintain these old broken lines? These old lines that get broken, rusty. So we're just kind of kicking that can down the road again, which is what we chose not to do several years ago, with a plan that was very well voiced. And the key behind it was, it's cheaper than doing it by bond issue. If we want to go back and revisit, we want to look at bond issue, that's fine. But kicking down the road doesn't do us any good.
Who you waving at, me? Okay. Go ahead.
Councilman Savage, and I agree with you, and that's why I brought up my second part of what I'm bringing up was my goal and my hope is that our revenue streams keep increasing. I think speaking to Sheila and with Stephanie there, I think we have a very conservative sales budget or sales tax budget this year, and we think we might have more coming in. So kicking it down the curb is a good analogy, and that's what we're talking about. But if we can get to where we're taking that $845,000 out and applying it all into infrastructure improvements without raising the cost of water, I would like for us to visit that. And if it takes us a year to see what our income's gonna be with all the new enhancements in our community, I would like to have a year to look at that without jeopardizing our long-term goal. Because I think our long-term goal is to get to that 1.75 annually to build that up. And right now we're at 400-some thousand annually coming in, and then at 845 would put us in that 1.2. So this $400,000 trying to get us into next year. And I'll still be here, so you can yell at me next year if it doesn't work.
There's no need for yelling. It's trying to put together a plan that'll work. This is just another increase directly going to water line replacement. You've still got the next consecutive years to get there. If we come up with the funds, and I think we should absolutely try, I think we should come up with them more than try, then we'll look at that after we have those funds. We won't raise the next round, if in fact they apply.
Well, one of the things that we can talk about as a board, and Ms. Urgent actually brought it to our attention, is deferring the water increase until June. Was that what our discussion was? Because we can see how much money we have cash carryover, is that?
Councilman Clark and Councilwoman Davidson wanted to try to make up the water increase for this year only, Councilman Savage, not continuing year after year like you're saying. And part of that was, in order to get there, the the thought of waiting to see what the cash carryover amount is in May, when we do the cash carryover true up. And if there is additional funds to transfer those additional funds, again, it's one time, one and done, it's not continuing.
Right, it's not a continuum, that's why I presented today something that we can focus on maybe for next year, trying to get that money that would continue every year going into the infrastructure improvements.
City manager.
One of the things that the council might want to consider this evening, and I know you're focused on wanting to raise as many dollars as you can for water, but one of the things that you might want to consider and remember is that your water and your wastewater, the way they raise dollars is through their rates. You don't have that in your transportation. So if you're looking at moving funds, your leftover reserves from general to water, what you might want to consider is instead, because water and wastewater are able through their rates to raise funds for repairs, but your transportation department does not have that, you might want to look at taking your reserve dollars and transferring that to your transportation for your roads, just for consideration.
Councilman Van Winkle.
Yeah, I'd like to ask one question before I comment, just to clarify something, Sheila. Councilman Clark mentioned the increases, and those being annually. The cost of living is annually, and the pay raises or steps are on their anniversary year, is that correct?
There is not a cost of living increase in this year's budget. There's only a step increase on
Okay.
their anniversary date.
Okay, so we don't have the cost of living increase right now anyway, so we are taking, if we do away with the steps, then they don't get any pay raises.
I believe what Councilman, and I don't want to speak for anyone else, but, so please correct me if
We
I'm
did
wrong.
not talk about any, the only thing we talked about was the grade increases, so
Great.
what we discussed 2 weeks ago, the city clerk's position going from a 54 to a 69, or anything that didn't deal with public safety.
Okay, so if I understand right, we're just talking about those specific grade increases that we were gonna take from the pay survey to move people up
Yeah.
into a different range?
But we
Okay,
left in the annual pay increase, the 2.5 they get, and we kept all the positions in there, trying to figure out a way to
okay,
generate more revenue, so hopefully next year we can tackle all this without, I mean, we're kinda
Okay.
late in the game, and so we're trying to find out a way to do it this year without actually getting, taking away all that stuff.
right, okay. I just wanted to clarify that part, and then I guess my comment goes somewhat along with Councilman Savage, that we started this plan. It wasn't easy to get to a year or so ago when this whole thing came up, and it's a bitter pill to swallow anytime you're increasing water rates, particularly at this level. But we also spent a lot of time looking at our city water pipes, and what the Public Works presented to us is real life issues here. It'd be nice to sit up here and just make the easy decision. Nobody wants to increase it, but we had a plan to increase it so we could improve our water pipes. I'm more than happy to consider, as I think it was said, that after this TIF switches over and is gone away, and then once a year down the road, once we see those changes have made and the difference it's making in our general fund, that would allow us to do something more in a planned stage to adjust our original plan, that's one thing. I'd support that, but to just pull the rug out from underneath our plan and not continue forward with our plan to raise the money to replace these water pipes, I wouldn't support. Thank you.
Councilwoman Davidson.
So I just want to clarify, so the money that we would have raised this year with the proposed 8%, we've found it. So if anything, we're delaying additional increases to next year if we wanted to do that then. but the money we would have raised, we found through these various proposals that Councilman Clark and I are proposing. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay, yes, Councilman Trutzel.
If we do the temporary change in the price of water this year, so we skip this year and leave it like it is, what are we potentially looking for as a rate increase for next year, assuming things stay the way they are? Are we gonna pick up, instead of 5% or 6%, it's gonna be 7 or 8 or 10 or whatever? What are we looking at as a possibility that this extra money is not available next year, and so we're gonna have to double up to make up the difference? Did I make myself clear?
Close to 16%.
I'm sorry, beg pardon?
Close to 16%.
That's what I was afraid of. Thank you.
Councilman Van Winkle.
And I'm sorry, I read through this and I don't know exactly where it came from. It may be from your discussion, but on page 7, number 1C, is this part of what your proposal is? To make those changes, to find that money that we need?
Sheila, yeah?
Item C was something that Councilman Lathrop brought up at the last meeting, suggesting that the departments reimburse the water fund for the water that they use.
But what I'm asking, is that part of the proposal that Stephanie and Councilman Clark are talking about right now? So that money, we're not doing anything with that at this point to satisfy what you're proposing? Okay. And the reason I say that, or why I want to clarify that, is our parks department, whether they're separate or not, they're still part of the city and for the citizens. To hit them with a sudden $80,000 bill for water after they've already set up their budget and have fought through this COVID and fought through the loss of membership due to many reasons here in the city, I think that would be unfair to treat the park department that way. If we're going to start charging the golf course X number of dollars, over $100,000, we got to keep in mind we already, I believe, the city comes up with another $200,000 every year already to just make them break even. So we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul on a lot of that. So, thank you.
Councilwoman David, oh, I'm sorry, you and Councilwoman P.
That's all right. I have a real concern for not giving our staff their grade, increasing their grade. We're trying to be competitive with every place else around our area. And if we don't take care of our staff, we're going to lose staff. We're going to lose good staff. So I know we changed the city clerk, but the list of the 8 or 9 position grade changes, I'm not for removing that. I think that's important to our staff.
I think I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
Mayor, we didn't actually affect any of those because basically Sheila told us that those steps didn't have any value. They're basically gonna get the 2.5% increase is all they get anyhow. That's why there's no dollar figures on that, because we didn't take those away other than the city clerk's position.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Sheila, I guess I'm confused then, because this sheet that I got from you showed the cost of the one step for all eligible employees was about $351,000. The new positions is $600,000. And then the grade change, which it was 21 position grade changes, but now it's around 7 or 8. When it was 21, it was $450,000. So obviously I'm confused about something.
Well, you're not really confused. The confusing part is that all of the grade changes that cost money other than the city clerk are being, the money is coming from the public safety sales tax because they're for first responder positions.
Councilman Clark, go ahead.
The only other great change that we didn't affect was emergency management director, because he already been promoted up to that 58 already, so that $60,000 was in there for that position.
I'm sorry, I remember. It was for the battalion chiefs. They are not covered under the CBA, so those funds, actually, the battalion chiefs, money would come from the general fund. So the to get up to your $60,000 would include the 3 battalion chiefs. And I did not include them in the proposal because that was not my understanding. And if I was wrong, let's amend this, but I'm sorry.
I thought most of that money was just for the emergency management, going from a 39 to a 58.
So
Because I thought when they went
it
to.
was in this, yes, and it was in this year's budget, yes. But the only things that are not covered by, that have a dollar increase for their grade change are positions that have multiple individuals in that position, like the battalion chiefs. And yes, we had the emergency management director, and then we had the city clerk.
Thank you. So basically, what I'm gonna convey is we didn't really touch salaries per se of the population other than the city clerk. Is that a correct statement? Okay, thank you. I think me and Councilwoman Davidson wanted to maintain the salary structure for the employees, and, it's a tough job sitting up here some days, and I tell people, I think everybody ought to do this once in their life and, try to make these decisions. Like Councilman Savage says, it looks easy some days, but it's not. And the first thing you'd ever want to do is affect someone's pay, and you always want to thank the employees for what they do for you and let them know that. So it was never my goal to affect pay, and we kept it that way.
Councilwoman Peak.
Going to item C, which Councilman Van Winkle brought up, I have a question. If in fact this goes through, what happens if golf and park cannot pay this, or comes to the end of the year and they don't have the money in their budget?
The money would have to come from the general fund.
Okay, so if we take the general fund down to 15%, then again, we will go down below our 15%. Okay, thank you.
Park's here. Do you want to say anything, Park, about that stuff?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to present some information to you all, try to provide you with some numbers from the 2020 pandemic year. I know Councilwoman Davidson's done a very good job of keeping you all in the loop about what's been going on with the park, but they were pretty general statements about how this COVID pandemic has affected our budget. So I wanted to kind of put some numbers in front of you and provide you a resource when you go to make a decision on this this motion to require a park and golf to pay for water. So I'm just going to go through some quick slides and give you some numbers. This is our High Blue Wellness. We lost about $495,000 in revenue. The black line is what we budgeted. The red line is what we actually received. As you all know, the minimum wage a couple of years ago went from, I believe, it was $7.85 to $12. The last 2 years, plus our new budget that should go into effect on April 1, we are going to have to absorb $139,000 just in minimum wage. And we have, just so you know, we've only increased fees. The last 2 years, we've increased our membership fees $1 per account per month. It's not a lot of money. We've absorbed this. The next 2 years, we have 2 more years of minimum wage increases, and we are going to absorb another $105,000. So that's a lot of money that we're absorbing just because of minimum wage law. Our rec program sustained a $72,000 loss, lower participation, which is a national trend due to COVID. Our rentals, very few weddings, very few building rentals, 50,000. So in the grand scheme of things, this past budget year, we took about a $750,000 loss in revenues. Fortunately, we feel like there's a little bit of a turn. Traffic is picking up, our registration numbers are picking up. But we've still got a budget that's been approved by the park board per the charter. And unfortunately, the revenues just aren't gonna come back April 1 because it's a new budget year for Belton Parks. So we have continued to make drastic cuts to our services for youth, for seniors. We've cut hours of operation. Our full-time employees are not getting a bump in pay April 1. We've cut 2 full-time positions, positions that have supported their families. Several part-time positions. We've got full-time employees that are working outside their comfort zone, trying to fulfill those part-time hours that we've cut. So here we are we got 3 weeks to go before our budget was supposed to go, and I think the council's considering putting us in charge of paying for our water. We appreciate the subsidy that the city does provide the parks. Unfortunately, we would have to make quick cuts. We would consider not having an outdoor water park season. We would probably make another full-time cut. Special events would be cut. And again, we're looking at an additional $105,000 over the next 2 years that we've got to figure out a way. And I know the golden question is why don't we raise rates? Well, we have to stay competitive. There's 2 other community centers on a short drive. There's competitors in our community that we're trying to compete with when it comes to our membership. Raymore's not very far for a rec fee that could go up $5 or $10 a kid, and we have seen that happen. So we're trying to balance what can we increase our fees but yet stay competitive and not lose business. So with all this being said, I just would ask that you vote no on this motion tonight for the benefit of parks. And I'm not sure what the picture looks like for Jay in the golf department, but that's just a screenshot of what it looks like for parks.
Thank you. Anybody have questions for Brian? Yes.
Do you know how much water you use a year?
I believe it was the figure we got. I mean, I know it was announced a couple of weeks ago, it was $273,000, which I don't know where that figure came from. But it ended up being $80,000, and I know there's a percentage of that there's an employee that's paid for by Public Works that basically works out of park maintenance. And they basically are the person in Public Works that works on the beautification of the city. They water the 163rd median, the roundabouts, Main Street. All that water is filled up out of our meter. So I don't know what that number is, but it would be less than $80,000, probably $72,000 worth of water.
Another question or a comment? Okay, so Councilman Clark.
I mean, the only comment I have about that motion is, like people have said, we're gonna take money out of the general fund, but, you know, if we're gonna charge every department, I didn't see what the fire department would pay for using water. I mean, I'm being funny here, because, I mean, I don't want them to put a meter on when they fight a fire, but I think if we're gonna charge other city departments water, we gotta make sure we charge everybody. And I'm not for the motion, because I don't think You know, springing on this late into these budget cycles, it's good for them, but yeah.
Councilwoman Davidson.
I'm not for the motion either. I just don't, I don't see a need for it, quite frankly. And it's all really coming out of the same pot anyway. So it's really just moving money around your plate, and creating holes somewhere else. I just don't see the need for it.
Any other questions for Brian? Thank you, Brian. And well, that brings up golf. And Jay's not here,
Yes,
but.
he is. Jay is in the back of the
You
room.
got
I did
anything you
have,
want to say, Jay?
Mr. Mayor, I can help you with this as well, and Jay, if you want to come forward, that'd be great. Had a conversation with him last week about how this would have an impact to the golf course. Just at a quick glance, and I don't know if he's looked at it any further or changed anything, but we'd have to look at least if not taking funds from general fund to help it, they'd have to see at least a 20% fee increase at the golf course. When you relooked at those numbers, Jay, does that still hold?
Well, yes. I mean, we are tied into an arrangement that we have with the club member program, which has been very beneficial to the golf operation. But we're tied into a specific rate through that contract, so we can't change the fees that we charge for those rounds of golf. But if you looked at and took those out of the equation, and you looked at the averages of the number of rounds that we do, which is around, for all intents and purposes, let's just call it 25,000 rounds. 4,000 of those rounds are tied up with the club member program that we can't charge them anymore due to our contract. So you're looking at basically trying to find $120,000 worth of revenue in the 21,000 rounds that are played at the golf course. Now, many of those are member rounds, so in some cases you'd be looking at over a 50% increase in our membership fees. So we would be doubling our membership fees to those rounds. And then you would be looking at probably a $5 increase across the board for every other fee that we charge to the players that play. Once again, it could be done, but we would be in a serious competitive disadvantage to those other businesses that are out there. And you know, there's 50 other golf courses in the Kansas City area, and many of the players that come to play our golf course are from far away. And they drive by golf courses to come play Eagles Landing because they like our facilities and they like our amenities. So to give them a possible reason to stop somewhere closer to home is a possibility. You know, I like Brian, you know, for something like this to come around at the 11th hour, so to speak, is a difficult task to try to manage. You know, hopefully the uptick that we've seen this year and the rounds of golf continue and those revenues continue, that there could be that possibility of looking at on down the road. But for the current fiscal year moving forward, it would be a hard task to try to find an additional $120,000 in revenue through rate increases. And then on top of that, once again, just like parks, we really don't have the luxury currently of cutting positions. We only have 5 full-time staff members as it is. So most of our staff is all part-time, and we do service about 4,400 hours that the golf course is currently open, which is basically sun up to sundown for the majority of the year. And that doesn't count when we come in for special events. We stay late, we come in early. There's days where we come in at 5 o'clock in the morning. There's days where we leave at midnight. So, you know, just kind of a general thought that cutting wages is really not an option for us as far as staff goes.
Council.
I know me and you talked about this before, Jay, is to reduce water consumption, we've talked about striping in zoysia grass. I don't know how much that would actually save on water usage, but what does that cost to do something like that for the golf course?
So for those of you that aren't familiar with warm season grasses versus cool season grasses, so we have bluegrass fairways, which is your typical yard fescue bluegrass is what you'd find in this area. Zoysia is a warm season grass that's found primarily south of Kansas City, your Texas, your Oklahomas, on down south. it requires a lot less water than your bluegrass does. I would say just an estimate would be about 40% less water. Now, there's times where we don't control water. When it rains a lot, you know, it's like a wet sponge, so it just stays damp. So there's positives and negatives to zoysia grass. The reason why we're on the borderline of being too far north for those warm season grasses. So there are years where golf courses experience a lot of turf loss, and that gets very costly because there's not currently a seed for zoysia, so you end up having to buy sod and resod those areas that happen to die. So there's positives and negatives to both grasses that we look at, but if you were looking straight at a water cost, reducing our water footprint for years to come, stripping in zoysia into the fairways would be my first recommendation. It's about, last time I looked, it's about $9,000 an acre to do that project. So you'd be looking at roughly about $300,000 to $325,000, depending on how you want to arrange the fairways and how you would strip that in. And that process takes about 3 years for it to fully grow in.
So basically, you're saying if you had a 40% reduction and you're using $116,000 of water, that's probably about around $50,000 less water per year. So in about 6 years of time, we can almost pay for that. Is that pretty close?
That's pretty close. I mean, I would be conservative and say it's more of an 8 to 10 year payback in regards to the investment that you would put into the golf course. But it could be much sooner. It just depends on, once again, Mother Nature, how hot it gets, things along those lines, stuff that we just can't control.
Councilwoman Davidson.
This really isn't related, but I just wanted to ask if we've ever considered leasing the naming rights to the golf course.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Interesting. Other comments, questions? My big concern so far is that in the proposal, we want to lower our budget down to 15%. What's going to happen if we have, and will have, well, it's supposed to rain really hard this weekend, so here we go, with all the problems that we have with high water in our city. 15%. What happens if we have a building collapse that we just heard when we talked about the 353 on Old Town? And the buildings are 1870 to 1930. A lot of this was built. How long ago were you, Councilman Clark, when the building collapsed on Main Street? That before you? After? But that cost a considerable amount of money. And what do we do if we have a disaster? Where do we get the money? Sheila?
That's the reason that we have the reserve, so that we have money to, if there were a tornado or a different kind of disaster, that we have funds to pay salaries while we're waiting for FEMA or SEMA to kick in.
Okay. Councilwoman Davidson.
And just to clarify, so we're at 16.12 right now?
That's the estimate for the end of next fiscal year, yes.
Okay, and so if we were to take that down to 15%, when we come up to May and do the true up of the cash carryover, it's very possible that we'd be back again above that 15%.
Possible.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Councilman Savage.
15% is what our ordinance says we're to keep, as exactly what Sheila said, to give us approximately 3 months operating. So 15% is what we're required. We have operated, in order to make budget work, as low as roughly 13%, just because we had to. But 15% is what we're supposed to have. Over that is not necessary.
Was that you, Councilman Clark? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can go back and look at last year's budget. I was trying to find it real quick, but I mean, I think when we got done with 21's budget, we were at like 17%, we finished at like 28. So, I mean, it's a very conservative budget, which is good, but, you know, I think if something major happened, Mayor, I think that's when we'd have to make decisions. These budgets are working documents, so we can modify this as we go if we have to.
Okay, any other comments or questions tonight? Seeing none, we have anything else on this, City Manager?
Not beyond, tonight's work session was to discuss budget and water rates discussion. If there's any other information the council would like as to the original plans for the water rates or what that looked like, we're happy to discuss it, but I think you've discussed it. I don't have anything further.
Okay, anybody else have anything there? Okay, well, with that then, we'll adjourn the work session, and at this time, we'll call the meeting to order. Pledge by Councilman Savage. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Davis,
Here.
Councilmember Savage,
Here.
Lathrop,
Here.
Trutzel,
Here.
Van Winkle,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Finn,
Here.
Davidson,
Here.
Peak.
Here.
Consent agenda, one motion, non-debatable, to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Councilwoman Davidson.
I'd like to review F, please.
F. Let me mark that one. Okay, so we're pulling that. Okay, any others? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. F, a motion approving Resolution R 2021-15.
And just to provide direction, Mr. Mayor, this evening we have Shelby and Madison filling in, and so just to provide a little direction, this will need to be read.
Well, I can read it. I used to have to read
It's
them.
okay, she's got it.
Go ahead, Shelby, you're up.
A resolution approving actions of the city manager to engage Bright Construction LLC for emergency stormwater repairs located at crossings on Apple Valley Parkway and Apple Valley Subdivision, and ratifying task agreement number 2021-1 in the amount of $245,000.
Okay, Councilwoman Davidson?
So was this beyond the original estimate or beyond the original scope of the project?
No, we're just doing pieces at a time. And you'll see continuing task orders until we get further down the line. But as we do task orders, we need to pay them as we go. And so this is just being able to do payments to them.
Okay, I saw emergency, and so I thought maybe this was an unexpected part of the project that we hadn't anticipated. So
No, it's just in that contract. And as we're going, fixing the different ones, that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
So, any other comments on that one? So, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
I got a motion and second, okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Okay, motions. A, motion to revise FY 2022 proposed budget to change the salary grade for the city clerk position from grade 69 to grade 54.
Present. Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. B, a motion to revise FY 2022 proposed budget to change the estimated end of fiscal year 2022 general fund balance percentage from 16.7 to 15% by transferring dollars to the water fund for water line replacement.
Present.
Motion is second, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. C, a motion to revise FY 2022 proposed budget to increase expenditures in each department to budget amounts necessary to reimburse the water fund for water used by each city department and appropriate those dollars for water line replacement. Do I need to read that one again?
No, if there's no first, then it's over.
Okay. Seeing none, moving on. Regular agenda. Motion approving the final reading of Bill number 2021-06 as amended.
An ordinance approving the reappropriation and revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2021 adopted city budget for the purpose of returning a portion of funds transferred by the water fund to the general fund for reimbursement of administrative costs.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Councilwoman Peak?
Sheila, can you, explain again how this was found? Or how this came about? Please, thank you.
Well, we were working to try to explain and show in detail the state auditor how we are going back and truing up the overhead allocation since the last few years, since Alexa came per her request. While I was laying that all out, I discovered a formula error in the spreadsheet of where we had done those calculations.
Councilman, oh wow, who are you, Dave Clark? I keep looking at the back of your head. Councilman Clark.
Call me Davidson.
Everybody's Davidson.
Grow my hair out. Wow.
And Davidson and Davis.
Davidson, I see that. My question is this worded based off the amendment we did last week or 2 weeks ago to transfer that money not back to the water fund, but back to the infrastructure improvements?
If you look at page 67, you can see the amendment so that it is going not to rainy day in the water fund, but actually the capital outlay for water line specifically.
I just want to make sure that it's worded correctly is all I'm looking for. Thank you.
Is it correct? Dave? Councilman Clark, was that appropriate? I mean, is that okay? Okay, somebody else had their hand up. Was it you? Okay. And any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor, it's a final reading.
Oh, it's a voice vote.
Golly, they don't have this marked at all. Okay,
Newbies.
final reading. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Savage.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Trutzel.
Aye.
Van Winkle.
Aye.
Lathrop.
Aye.
Peak. Aye. Clark.
Aye.
Finn.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, B, a motion approving the final reading of Bill number 2021-07.
An ordinance approving the reappropriation and revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2021 adopted city budget for the purpose of appropriating stormwater bonds proceeds to replace water lines in conflict with the storm sewer for the Hargis Lake Storm Water Improvements Project.
Present.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Discussion. Okay, I have, what's this one going to do now with, how many storm projects are we going to cancel with this? Cancel?
This could impact approximately 3 jobs that were outlined by Greg at our last meeting, Mayor.
Okay, so what were the 3 projects that, can you recall?
It'll be the Heighton Bryan project, the Lacey Estates project, and then the projects on Hawthorne and Redbud, I'm sorry.
So when do we think we'll make those projects up?
Probably with the next bond issuance that you do,
Okay.
and there's no plans for that in the future.
Councilman Savage first.
Mayor, this is still in a water line replacement that's being thrown upon, because of stormwater. It is part of a stormwater project.
Right.
We are, this water main, my understanding is just fine. It's not even part of our replacement. So we're, again, when you plan these projects, in this case it's stormwater, you best put enough money in there to cover it. Regardless of who did this, I'm not pointing fingers at this staff, but this is forced upon because of the stormwater. It's part of the stormwater project, and it needs to be paid for out of that.
Okay. Councilman Van Winkle, you were next.
My thoughts here, and I agree with Councilman Savage on this point. But I'm just wondering, when we have these stormwater projects where people's houses are flooding and we're having time and time again, you know, I'm lucky my house doesn't flood, but I've seen the results of it, and I just wonder what kind of feelings these people have when these storms come, and we've had some significant ones over the last few years. Not to mention the erosion you get from the lack of stormwater being directed properly also causes you problems with water pipes and everything else around it. And I feel like we probably should reconsider and not strip them so much money from our stormwater projects that we can't move forward, particularly in those areas that we just brought up, because of the fact that they've been hit hard, very hard over the last many years. That's all.
Councilwoman Davidson.
And what is the cost of the water part of this?
For Hargis Lake, it's over $800,000.
And so how, if we were to separate those out and not include that as part of this project, how would we pay for that?
They would normally pay it out of the water department, out of our water line replacement program.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
see,
saw
I
you
knew.
thinking.
I knew.
saw you rolling.
You could probably hear me sigh, so you knew. Yeah, so I was just gonna ask. Oh, never mind. No, never mind. Sorry.
Okay. Any other questions, Councilman Savage?
My comment would be still, it probably feels about like the folks that doesn't have water, or they've got rusty water, and we're still trying to generate funds to pay for those mains. It probably feels about the same.
I could agree with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Davidson.
I'm back. So when we spoke about this, what was it, 2 weeks ago, we weren't sure at that point that we were gonna for sure have to cancel the last couple of projects. Are we in a different place now where we think for sure that's gonna have to go, or is it to be determined?
It's pretty sure because, for instance, if we take this policy and apply it to Lacey Estates, we're going down every street in Lacey Estates needs to have storm drainage put in. There's actually none in there. So we'll hit every water line in Lacey Estates too. So that will be a significant amount of money that to be spent there too. So that would prohibit that job from moving forward itself. Redbud and Hawthorne has the same issue where we'll be going across many water lines to take care of it. So it's gonna basically be a way that's gonna have to stop the projects.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we can do the vote.
Councilmember Savage?
Aye.
Peak?
No.
Davidson,
Aye.
Finn,
Aye.
Van Winkle,
No.
Lathrop,
Aye.
Trutzel,
No.
Clark,
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
No, and that motion passes. Okay, where am I at? C? A motion approving the first reading of bill number 2021-08.
An ordinance amending sections 42-36, rates inside the city, 42-38, water rates for approved water districts or local governments, 42-39, rates for water consumed outside city, 42-296, sewer system user rates of the Unified Development Code of the City of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Motion is second. Discussion. Councilman Clark.
I guess my thing is trying to figure out where we can go with this. Councilman Savage, I've never stopped trying to get money for the infrastructure improvements. I was a council member 20 years ago, and I thought that we had this lined up 20 years ago, so disappointing when I found out last year we didn't continue this. So I don't want to kick it down the curb, but I do think that one of the things that we have to look at as a board here is we hear from the general population all the time about the cost of water in our community. And if we can push this off until June, what did you say, Sheila, May? That would be my recommendation today, to push it off until May, to see if there's more funds that we can use from cash carryover, to see if there's money we could put towards this to make sure we keeping that fund proper.
Councilman Savage.
Question to staff. This complete and total 8% is going 100% for replacing water mains. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I just have a
Clark.
generic question, and this is for Greg, and it's off the top of your head, because I know you don't have the exact numbers. It seems like Apple Valley, we live in that subdivision. How many water line breaks did we have in there?
0.
Oh, 0, okay. For some reason, it seemed like we're always in Apple Valley fixing something, so
It's generally stormwater.
it's all stormwater in there? Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Councilwoman Peak.
I would almost like to see us postpone until the end of May or the 1st of June to see. I know we need to continue to put money into the fund to replace the water lines, but maybe instead of the 8%, it could be a lower, maybe 4%. Maybe we'll find, that would be half of what we got, or what you think that we're gonna make from this last year when we delayed it. So, I know it's not the best way to get to our total, but maybe it's a compromise.
Was that in the form of a motion there, Patrick?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is that a motion, either Councilmember Clark's recommendation or your previous statement?
I approve, yeah. I would like to push off to May, but that was just my thoughts as an individual. If other council members would agree with me, I'd make a motion that we delay this until May, until we find out the cash carrier over from the general fund.
I think that's a perfect motion. I don't even have to add anything there.
You said June, though.
Well, it's like June 1st, May 31st. What is it? What date do we look at?
If you will vote on, if you will wait till May, when we have the cash carryover numbers, if you needed to do a rate increase, you could do it effective in June.
June, okay.
But we would need to vote on it in May, probably.
By the second meeting, or the first meeting? You'll know the numbers by the first meeting in May?
We should know the numbers by the first meeting in May.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that was the motion.
technically you make a motion to postpone to a date certain, so you would pick the meeting that you want to review it again, because it's on, we already have a motion tonight, so you're
I
making a motion.
I made a motion to delay this motion until the May of 2021, when we get the cash carryover.
To get as particular as I think Chief is requesting a motion to postpone the first reading of Bill number 2021-08 to the first City Council meeting in May 2021.
There it is.
Who made that motion?
The comments on that, Mayor, one of the things that I would bring up is currently tonight, the board has set $400,000 roughly towards infrastructure improvements already. I know it's not a continuation, and that's where we got to look at getting that money going into our fund to keep the infrastructure improvements going. But we have put $400,000 in tonight into that infrastructure improvements, which, based off my recollection from last 2 weeks ago, Sheila said something that we didn't get to that 483. We only did about 400,000 on that 10% this year because we started it late. Is that roughly close? Okay. So, I mean, the 8% hopefully is around 400,000. We got somewhat there already, but now we gotta figure out ways to get this money going and get up to that 1.75.
You've made a motion, am I right? Did we ever get a second?
Van Winkle.
Second over here? Okay, now we were discussing, okay. Anybody else? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Do we need anything else? Okay. D, a motion approving the first reading of Bill number 2021-11.
An ordinance approving the proposed fiscal year 2022 city budget as revised and appropriating funds from the revenue of the city.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Councilman Clark.
I just wanted to make sure, I mean, I made the motion, and I think Councilman Finn, you seconded it. We were both no's. Is that how it's supposed to be, or because it was revised, it could have been anybody? I just want to make sure we're doing it procedurally correct.
One, it's right both ways. Whether or not you consider the revision, then a different ordinance, which I do believe this is a different ordinance number.
Oh, it
and
is,
the budget
okay.
itself is now revised due to the motions earlier in this meeting. But also, since you two were in the majority party, you do have the right to reconsider. But you didn't make a motion to reconsider. This is a new ordinance. It's just a motion to read it.
All right, thank you.
So we're good on this? No problem? Oh, boy. With that, that was the first. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. E, a motion approving the first reading of Bill number 2021-12.
An ordinance approving the reappropriation and revision of the City of Belton fiscal year 2021 adopted city budget for the purpose of increasing the budget for the Public Works trucks purchase and decreasing the budget for the inspections department.
Second.
Motion and
I'm
second.
sorry, who made the Chet and, Gary Lather, okay. Thank you, I'm so sorry.
Motion and second. Discussion. Councilwoman Davidson.
Can we just get a little bit of explanation on this for folks watching?
So basically what's happening here is that I have 2 cars in my fleet, fairly new cars. And Public Works is not a car type department. We're a pickup truck type department. And Planning and Building had money appropriated this year to buy 2 new cars. So instead of buying 2 more cars that I could actually provide to him, we're actually going to move our 2 cars to Planning and Building, take their money and a little bit of the money that was left over from other equipment purchases this year, and buy 2 trucks. So we end up him having 2 cars that he needs, and I have 2 trucks that I need, and we right-size the fleet.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. F, motion approving the first reading of Bill number 2021-13.
An ordinance approving an amendment to the city's zoning map from R1 Single Family Residential District to C2 General Commercial District from 1.9 acres of the parcel located on the south side of East North Avenue at Apple Valley Parkway, Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
Motion is second. Discussion. Councilwoman Davidson.
Is there anyone here who can present a little bit, talk about the project, or?
Yes, Dave Clements from Planning and Building can talk about it, as well as David Christie, the developer, is also just entered the room and can talk about the item as well. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Alexa. Mayor Davis, members of the council, this is an application for rezoning from existing R1 to a proposed C2 General Commercial District and a preliminary development plan for 2 retail buildings on this 1.9 acre site. One of the retail buildings is a kiosk of approximately 800 square feet to serve as a possible coffee shop. The larger retail building is 4,700 square feet at the rear of the site. That will be a speculative retail or restaurant building. The Planning Commission considered this request at their meeting last Monday, March 1st, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also present.
Councilman Clark.
Dave, is there a water retention area right there? And if there is, what are we making sure that, I think that water goes down, I call it the Coles Pond. I don't know what you guys call it.
This area is in the Marquis Regional Detention Basin, so this site can be appropriately filled and new stormwater right-sized to flow under East 58 Highway and to contribute to the Marquis Basin.
Since we are talking about stormwater here, I just want to make sure that we have make sure it's not going to affect anything downstream. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Davidson.
Did we ever have any concerns from residents in Apple Valley at any of the meetings prior to this?
No one attended the Planning Commission meeting to speak in favor or in opposition to the request.
And do we have tenants planned for this?
At this point, I do believe it's all speculative.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Clark.
I do see a house sitting right here. I didn't know if Mr. Christie was going to keep up some trees to kind of have a buffer between residential there and his buildings.
There is a single-family home immediately south of the site, and we did look very closely at that, had a lot of conversations about how to work the development so it didn't impact that home. Now, our code does require what's called a Type A buffer for residential abutting or commercial abutting residential, and that's a couple different things. It could be densely planted evergreen trees or a board-on-board fence, and Mr. Christie's plan shows a board-on-board fence. I think we should give a shout out to Mr. Christie because he did reach out to that property owner and had several conversations with them about the proposed development and got that property owner's input on the plan. And I think he's present. He could speak more to that. But we were as sensitive as we could be about the impact on that abutting single-family home.
I appreciate that, Mr. Christie.
Questions? Councilman Van Winkle.
I guess my question's directed more towards the traffic. Have we done any kind of hard look at how this is going to affect traffic? Because I know I don't go into Apple Valley often, but I go up and down 58 a lot, and I know there's a lot of traffic in and out of that artery for the housing addition back that way. Do we have an idea of what kind of effect this will have on traffic through there?
Mr. Van Winkle, we did discuss traffic impacts of the proposed retail development. And this is a relatively small retail building, and it would not generate the types of volume that required a traffic study. So our Public Works Department looked pretty closely at this, and they're very comfortable with an opinion that there would be no adverse impact on East 58 highway traffic.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. G, a motion approving both readings of Bill number 2021-14.
An ordinance terminating the Belton Town Center Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Area as created by the Belton Town Center Tax Increment Financing Plan and dissolving the Belton Town Center Tax Increment Financing Special Allocation Fund.
Present.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Councilwoman, you were reaching. Come on now.
Just turn it on. We're good.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Second.
Motion and a second for a second reading. Discussion? Councilman?
like a burning of the, I've never seen one, so I'm just saying.
Wow. Okay. That's a good thought. That's deep. Anybody else? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry?
No.
To approve the second reading.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Again, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. I'd entertain a second.
Move for second reading?
Motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Just one.
Now roll
Okay, now we can.
No, we can't.
Let's read it.
Roll call.
Roll call.
We need to read it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let me start out with you. Motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2021-14.
An ordinance terminating the Belton Town Center Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Area as created by the Belton Town Center Tax Increment Financing Plan and dissolving the Belton Town Center Tax Increment Financing Special Allocation Fund.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, can we roll call?
Councilmember Savage,
Aye.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Peak, Van Winkle,
Aye.
Lathrop,
Aye.
Finn,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye, and that motion passes. City Council liaison reports. Councilwoman Davidson.
Uh-oh, it's my turn. Hold on. All right, let's see. You won't want to miss out on the best summer jobs around. Come join our team. Belton Parks is now accepting applications for summer camp assistant directors, summer camp counselors, rec assistants, and concessions. You can apply online at beltonparks.org/jobs or drop by the front desk at High Blue for an application. We hope to see you around this summer. And then we just announced the 7th annual Belton Stream and Watershed event. That's Saturday, March 27th at Wallace Park in Belton. Join your friends, neighbors, scouts, city officials, and others in caring for the stream and watershed in your Belton community. There will be coffee and donuts, and then you will pick up trash and remove exotic, invasive Japanese bushes and honeysuckle before you break for hot dogs and socializing. Bring your own reusable water bottle, wear appropriate clothing and shoes, and they will have safety training, gloves, trash bags, and loppers provided. And then High Blue Wellness Center is now hiring. They're looking for some extra, if you're looking for some extra hours, they're hiring for front desk attendants for evening and Sunday shifts. They'd love to have you join the team. Apply at High Blue or online at beltonparks.org/jobs. And then the Easter egg hunt is returning. That is also Saturday, March 27th. This is at Belton Memorial Park. Games and fun begin at 10 a.m. and the hunt is at 11 a.m. Kids hunt on the ball fields divided by age groups. All activities are outdoors. Please bring your own basket. Masks are encouraged. This is sponsored by the Belton Hy-Vee and Belton Parks and Recreation. And then lastly, Saturday, April 17th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., we're having a spring craft show. This is at the High Blue Wellness Center. It's completely free. Just contact Melissa directly at mferrari@beltonparks.org for inquiries. It's the first spring craft show at High Blue, a perfect destination for thoughtful Mother's Day gift ideas, and they'll have a wide variety of craft vendors for you to check out. Thank you.
Thank you. City manager, no. Mayor's communication first. Let's think. COVID numbers, real quick. Vaccinations, Councilwoman Peak. Our numbers that we follow every day, and Chief Person, you may want to jump in on this. Our numbers are looking fairly good. How about the number of vaccinations? I know a lot of people are still having a hard time finding where they can get their shots. Is there any kind of advice we should be giving the public?
The advice that, the county government and the state government's given is to make sure that you are signed up, if you want a shot, to, sign up on one of those, vaccination, if not multiple vaccination sites, to, fill out the surveys, and get a call, from the county. They are starting to call people off those lists. It's also possible, because the federal government is now making vaccinations available to local pharmacies, participating partner pharmacies, and so you can also go through those pharmacies, get your name on their lists. I know that Hy-Vee has been giving a number of vaccinations. Even if you want one and you can't get one in Belton or Cass County, they are available throughout the metro area, and going out into the rural areas, it's possible to get them also. So if someone is diligent and really wants one and is qualified, it is possible to get a vaccine.
And what did they say today, Chief, about talking about what we're going to do with our different, like Todd Crass? What was he saying he's going to do here locally?
I was not on the call today.
Okay.
I've been a little preoccupied today. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so they've got some more going with them. And plus, I guess I should report right now that I talked to him.
If you have the information, I would give the report yourself, yes.
They have said that the urgent care, they're working on it really fast to have that opened up, but there's starting to be all kinds of opportunities for people to get their COVID shots. So that's important, and they're saying that if you get your second, you can even be with people and still be smart.
Other people that are also fully vaccinated, and fully vaccinated means 2 weeks past either your second vaccine, or if you are taking the Johnson & Johnson, 2 weeks past your single vaccine.
Okay, were you gonna say something? I couldn't tell. Okay, you were gonna say something.
I was
Yes.
just gonna say, I was at Hy-Vee the other day, and it seemed like they had a line going up there to get vaccinated, so they must have a bunch.
It's incredible. It's, what did they say, the numbers of people across the country now, the millions, it's going pretty quick right now, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, and the hospital did have their second clinic out at the park last week, for the folks that took their first vaccine. And so they ran the same 500 people through again for their second vaccine, and everything went just fine.
Yes, go ahead.
I saw a news story, I think maybe it was Friday, about Belton participating in a VA clinic.
Right.
Right, that was through the Veterans Administration, and they had one here, they had one in Clinton, they have had one in Harrisonville, so if you are a veteran, they are making those available to you.
That's on Cunningham, like right behind Texas Roadhouse, right? Okay, and going on.
Once again, they are not necessarily, because there are so many endeavors going on, they are not necessarily notifying the local government. I find out most of that information the same way you all do, is the media. And so that's, if you want to be vaccinated and you are diligent, follow the media leads and follow that up.
We've had several people that have contacted us that they're not technologically, they are challenged. The libraries had been closed, they couldn't get in and use computers. It created some dilemmas, so you gotta be good neighbors of friends that are in that situation. You need to help those people in some way, because they're out there, and it's gonna be a long time, a lot of people that won't have got their shots. Of course, they're putting themselves in peril. My second item this morning, first thing, I had a civic class. They were a civics class at the high school. These are civic-minded students that are looking at the way government runs, and it was a great class. It was a lot of fun. They had all kinds of questions about government, and especially about how a charter worked, and it was a lot of fun. And we really enjoyed it, and they were a great group. So we were really good to have these people. It was great to have them in that class today. Also, had the chamber event this afternoon, and that was great over at the tea room, and it was well received, and it was really kind of crowded. But a lot of the new businesses on Main Street spoke and did a great job. And I know that what do we call it, the Hatchet Brewery, what's it called, Carol?
Broken Hatchet.
Broken Hatchet, and we had Stegner with the Botanical Building. He was talking about that, and there was one other one, a brand new one. But we've got a lot of new business coming on Main Street, and it was exciting to hear all of them sharing. It was good to see people back together, so it was exciting. So with that, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did want to make an announcement this evening and let the council and the community know that there was a real estate purchase made by the city, house on 2nd Street. That completes a complete block area there that the city now owns for future development. That real estate transaction is concluded now. In addition, I want to reiterate the stream cleanup event on March 27th. And we're really looking forward to that. We were unable to have that event, either event in the spring or fall last year. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot that needs to be done there. So we're encouraging as many businesses and community members to please come out and help us with that. Want to also advise the council that I have heard from both the police and fire, and the collective bargaining agreements that were proposed by the council have been agreed to. And you will be seeing those contracts in front of you at the next meeting on March 23rd. As such, I would like to suggest and recommend an additional meeting on Tuesday, March 30th, in order to get those passed. And there's some additional business I think that will be coming that is very time sensitive. So I'm recommending an additional meeting on Tuesday, March 30th. And finally tonight, I wanted to welcome our new police chief, Scott Lyons, to the meeting this evening. He's been here about a week and a half now, well, actually right at a week, and doing a great job. James has only called me a couple times to say what a great job that you're doing, and actually was teasing me and giving me a hard time, but just really pleased, and just things are going very well at the police department, and
I have told him that every meeting will not be this easy for him.
And so, welcome, Chief Lyons. Absolutely. And that concludes my report.
All right. Any, what do we have? Communications from the City Council? Councilman Clark.
Chief Lyons, welcome to Belton. So, since the chief person's still here, I'm going to ask him this question, but you can listen in. Won't throw you in the bus first meeting, but I was coming up Mill Street today, and it looks like when Hillcrest is letting out, I had 2 cars going around the line there. I mean, I guess I've never been over there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I don't know if that's something that we should be looking at, because that seemed like very dangerous. People are trying to get through there.
It becomes very crowded around all of our, particularly elementary schools, every day. We do get a lot of complaints. We try to have officers, as they're available, be in those areas, and I'm sure that that's something that Chief Lyons will address as time goes on, and he is now in charge of day-to-day operations. But it is something that historically we have dealt with around all of those schools, because for about 30 minutes towards the end of school, sometimes up to an hour, depending on weather, the schools will back up, all of those schools, because of all of the traffic, people going to pick up their kids.
Of course, I live out by Kentucky Trail, and I mean, we're a 4-lane road out there, so they at least they got that second lane to
I get a lot of complaints about Kentucky Trail. They go all the way down 160, or they go all the way down the 4-lane road. They go back into Kentucky View.
Right.
And they go all the way back down and around Spring Valley. So
Well, I guess I don't know as a council how we work with the school districts to fix that. I mean, it's been, like you said, it's been going on for a while,
We have
but
worked with the school districts in order to help them develop plans for picking up kids and dropping kids off. However, they use a valet system where they actually send their staff out to help get the kids out of the cars and to put kids into cars individually.
Right.
And so it takes a while to do that. Parents, particularly, it's been this way for several years, but particularly during COVID, they're much less likely to have kids riding buses collectively and picking up their kids individually. And so we have seen a lot of congestion in those areas. Both the school district and the police department's aware of it. We try to monitor it the best we can, but we also know that it's for the hour before school and the hour after school.
I don't notice it in the morning as much as especially I leave my house and when KT's getting ready to go in, and it seems like they get in and out of there pretty quick in the morning, but in that afternoon, of course, some of those people start lining up 45 minutes
There are
ahead of time.
a lot of parents and grandparents that will want to get their secured spot in line and will continue to come earlier.
Thank you.
Any other information? Seeing none? Motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is accepted. Here we go. We're adjourned.